This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Now, if there's one person that could pretty much sum up my entire childhood dreams of being a movie star, then it couldn't have been any other person than the ultimate badass of Bruce Lee. I mean, the amount of times that I've watched Enter the Dragon as a kid while trying to fly kick my sister off the sofa is insane. But as a kid, I just saw Bruce Lee as nothing more than just an amazing fighter. But as I've grown up, I've realised that there's so much more to understand about Bruce Lee's life. I mean, his concepts and teachings through his martial art of Jeet Kune Do is something that we can actually take a lot of life philosophies from. It's not just for martial artists. And what I'm going to explore is how we can apply Bruce's philosophies into our own lives. Now, in case you're new here, this is an entrepreneurship channel. The things that I cover are in relevance to how us entrepreneurs can use certain character traits to implement into our lives, our businesses, and in ourselves. So if you are interested in learning from your favourite characters, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any golden knowledge. And to break down Bruce Lee, I'll be using Robert Greene's works as reference of power, war, and mastery. So how can we think like Bruce Lee? What exactly is it that we can learn from him in order to increase the power in our lives? Well, the principle that we can use to do this comes down to the 48th law of power, assuming formlessness. By taking shape or having a visible plan, you open yourself up to attack. Instead of taking a form for your enemy to grasp, keep yourself adaptable and on the move. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and nothing in life is fixed. The best way to protect yourself is to be as fluid and formless as water. Never bet on stability or lasting order. Everything always changes. And this was the key point behind Bruce Lee's thinking and his philosophy of his martial art. There is a very famous interview that Bruce Lee gave where he says that in order for a person to achieve greatness, they must empty their mind. They must become formless and shapeless, exactly like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Now, even though my Bruce Lee impression was probably terrible, we now actually have a framework to refer to for Bruce Lee's ways of thinking and philosophy. Now, the reason why he suggests to be like water is because water has no shape. It essentially becomes whatever it's poured into, whether that is a bottle, a cup, or a teapot. What Bruce means by saying to assume formlessness is that people shouldn't allow themselves to be trapped in a certain mindset. Instead, a person's mindset and ways of viewing life should be able to adapt to situations, ever changing and ever growing, being on a journey of evolution. That's how one can adopt the qualities of water. And even though Lee usually spoke in the context of martial arts, we can also apply this concept to many other parts of our lives. The ability to not be stuck and be stubborn in our ways. Despite the long traditions of traditional Chinese martial arts, Bruce Lee unconventionally went against blindly following only one particular set of instructions and beliefs. What Lee suggested to his students was to establish a form of non-attachment to things. When it came down to his fighting style, which was known as Jeet Kune Do, it was a living embodiment of what Lee stood for. The translation of Jeet Kune Do into English directly interprets to the way of the intercepting fist. The idea of not reacting to the enemy, but of responding to the enemy. This style of fighting was not only Lee's own original creation, but it also embodied Lee's life's philosophy. Unlike conventional martial arts, where one art focuses specifically on one thing, such as boxing on punches, wrestling on grappling, and judo on throws, Bruce's Jeet Kune Do, ironically, actually favoured no particular style of fighting at all. This key principle of having no set path or set way is what allowed the students of the craft of Jeet Kune Do to be formless, allowing the style and art to be adapted to any style of combat. The reason why Bruce went against adapting just one style, or even styles altogether, is because he felt that this way of thinking restricts your freedom, your creativity, your intellect, and your growth. I mean, why can't a boxer use his legs as weapons to win a fight? Or why can't a wrestler throw a punch to win the battle? Bruce believed that just by having one style, or just one rigid way of thinking, not only limits your growth as a martial artist and in life in general, but it also makes you very predictable, which then exposes you to being vulnerable from attack from your enemies. For example, if I know I'm about to get into a conflict with a boxer, then I know that my best bet is to try get them on the ground and wrestle with them. And vice versa, if I was about to get into a fight with a wrestler, then it would be wise for me to just keep my distance with them and utilize kicks and punches, making it much easier for me to create and execute a strategy to defeat them. Whereas, if I was to fight a mixed martial artist, the type of fighters that you typically see in the UFC, who utilize a mix of techniques, then it makes it 100 times harder for me to execute a strategy to defeat them. This concept of just being trapped in one mindset, such as a Chinese way of fighting or an American way of fighting, is what will cause you to be rigid. And by being rigid and tough, this will allow your enemies to easily strategize against you and prevent you from any growth. This is one of the reasons why Bruce Lee is actually considered to be the grandfather of MMA, and many fighters believe that he would have dominated today's UFC league, as his way of thinking and his Jeet Kune Do philosophy is exactly what the UFC is all about, finding the ultimate fighter. So why would you limit yourself to just one martial art? The wiser thing to do will be to take different techniques from different martial arts and combine them into your own strategy of fighting. Lee's style of Jeet Kune Do is all based on utilizing all ways and uses any techniques or means which serves its end. Jeet Kune Do does not beat around the bush. It does not take the winding detours. It follows a straight line to the objective. Simplicity is the shortest distance between 2 points, which in essence, in the context of martial arts, was to defeat your opponent. That is the objective. And if you want to understand the truth in martial arts, what Lee suggested was that you must throw away the idea of adapting one particular style or learning from just one particular school. Only then, when you get rid of this whole idea, will your mind cease all conflict and come to rest. In this silence, you will see totally and freshly. This is what is meant when Bruce Lee says, "Be water." This idea of his was to influence a person to be in an ever-changing state of flow by having no rigid system. And this is what grants you the power to be flexible to change. Now, I know you may be thinking, hang on Aaron, you're getting way too philosophical here. How exactly can I use this principle of power to benefit my life? Well, there's an old Japanese proverb that states that the oak tree is mighty, yet it can easily be destroyed by a mighty wind, as it resists the elements. The bamboo, however, bends with the wind, and by bending, it survives. What is meant by this is that no matter how strong you may think you are, if you pride yourself in just being tough and rigid all the time and stuck in your ways, it will just be inevitable that eventually a greater power will come along and break you. But unlike the oak tree, the bamboo is much more resilient, as instead of fighting and resisting against the elements, it bends with them, adapting and responding to the situation. And as a result, it never breaks. So what nature is telling us is that the best way to overcome the obstacles that we face in our life is not to be rigid and stuck in our ways, but to adapt a mindset of flexibility, which grants us the ability to bounce back from even the most difficult situations. And the way you control this ability of being able to bend with the obstacles in life is once again by assuming formlessness, exactly like the bamboo and exactly like the water does, adapting to each and every circumstance as it comes. And that's what will grant you strong power in your life and even against your opponents. The whole goal of the art of any conflict, whether that's physical or psychological, such as competition and business, is to attack your enemy in the most efficient way possible and make it hard for your enemies to attack you. Bruce's Jeet Kune Do way of fighting was majorly unpredictable, which is what made it hard for his opponents to land an attack on him. And this is a key advantage to assuming formlessness, as adapting it frustrates your enemies as you're giving them nothing solid to attack. When you're not weighed down by a rigid system or inflexible ways of doing things, you're able to move fast. You're able to sense change a lot more quicker and adapt to the situation. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't have values and principles, but the point that Bruce makes with Jeet Kune Do is that you should never be afraid to change your way of thinking. Many people go through their life with the same mindset that they had when they were a teenager, but then they moan and complain when they don't see any growth in their lives, and they blame their external circumstances. But in reality, the reason why they are stuck in this never-ending cycle of withering growth is because that they refuse to change their ways of thinking. What may have worked for them before may not work for them now, and what may have worked in this situation may not work in that situation, but what didn't work in that situation may work in this situation. But when you're still trying the same old strategies in the same old situations, you are going to more or less get the same results. And that is the consequence of always thinking in one mindset. Always remember the wise words of Bruce. Be water and assume formlessness. Examples of this in business and life is by being radically open-minded and by exploring new techniques and strategies. Yes, granted, they all might not work and you may not agree with all of them, but at least you are on a path of growth, because you never know what life will hit you with. But all it takes is for you to hit on just one new strategy or one new concept, and that will ultimately help change your life. This whole concept of assuming formlessness highlights the importance of not labeling yourself. An example of this is when it comes to something like politics. Personally, I wouldn't call myself a right-winger, nor would I say I'm a left-winger. There's beliefs that I agree and disagree on both sides of the political spectrum, but because I don't label myself or take a form, this liberates me to not having to be stuck inside a box, and I can believe whatever I damn well like, and no one can tell me any the wiser. Again, when it comes down to religion, I do follow my main family's religion more as a cultural thing, but there are many concepts from other different religions and philosophies that I also believe and agree with. That's why I consider myself as much more as a spiritual person more than a religious one. And again, by assuming no form, no one can tell me what I can and can't do. And most importantly, no one can use my form against me, exactly like the boxer and exactly like the wrestler. because I try not to adapt just one form alone. The goal in your head should be to become a student of Jeet Kune Do. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about the actual physical side of things, but the philosophical side of things is what makes it amazing. And the ultimate concept is to learn from everything. Don't put yourself inside this box. Open your eyes and look at the whole landscape of things. And explore it. See what works for you, see what doesn't work for you, see what ideas you like, see what ideas you don't like. And ultimately, just be your own person and believe what you believe is right, even if it seems contradictory to others. Because if you take no form, then no one can use that against you. And ultimately, this concept will not only accelerate, but it will also supercharge your life on the journey of growth. And that's how to think like Bruce Lee. And that is the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do explained. So if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment below what you think about Bruce's philosophy, and let me know who you would like to see next. And if you are new to the channel, welcome to the channel, and to all our loyal subscribers, we are glad you are here. We do some of the best character breakdowns on the whole of YouTube, and we aim to produce at least one high quality animated video per week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any golden knowledge. I'll see you soon.